Page 261, we are going to take this volume thing just to another level. We're going to basically work and think about that expression, or think about how we got that length times width times height, and start really applying it, okay? So let's take a look at number one. We're going to develop a formula that says, what is the volume of this rectangular prism? Okay, we learned that length times width times height, right? So the volume is length times width times height. So we have 1, 2, 3, so we're going to say 3 times, and then back is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to take that times its height, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so 3 times 4 is 12. 12 times 3 is, what's 12 times 3? 36, right? So the volume is 36 cubic, and I think we're just using squares, so it's cubic units. We don't really know what it is, okay? So how do you find the area of a rectangle? Do you guys remember how to find area? This is volume, so it's 3 dimensions. An area would just be if you want to just calculate what's inside of a flat surface, right? Remember length times width? Okay, so how do you calculate that? You take length times width. Okay. How do you find the volume of rectangular prism? Well, it's length times width, but now we also have this height because it's 3 dimensions. So we're going to say length times width times height. We should know that by now. How is finding volume different than finding area? Well, area has 2 dimensions, they're 2D, and volume is 3 dimensions. You have this extra dimension, right? This is length times width, this is length times width, plus this height, like the layers. Remember, we add layers to something to get a volume. So it says write a formula for finding the volume of any rectangular prism. We know that volume is length times width times height. Okay, there's our equation where you could say volume equals length times width times height. Okay, so right here it says this ice cube is shaped like a cube. Its edge lengths are 2 centimeters. What is the volume of this ice cube? Write a formula for finding the volume of any cube. So we know the volume for finding any cube is volume equals length times width times height. So we're going to say volume is equal to, and this is 2 by 2 by 2, so it's 2 by 2 by 2, right? Okay, so it's 2 by 2 by 2. So it's going to be 2 times 2 times 2. How did I know that? Because the cube is perfectly shaped, okay? So 2 times 2 is 4. So we're going to say volume is equal to, and then 4 times 2 is 8. And then we said it's centimeters, so we're going to say cubic centimeters. So that volume of that little ice cube is 8 cubic centimeters. Okay? Alright, so let's flip this over and let's start working on this. Okay, so you basically have to find the expression, which means you have to write it out and then solve it. Okay, so the expression here, see it's 2 by 4 by 3. The expression is 2 times 4 times 3. Don't forget, expression does not have an equal sign. Okay, so it's just 2 times 3 times, or 2 times 4 times 3. So then we actually take 2 times 4 times 3. So 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24, but make sure we put cubic feet. Okay, because it's feet. Alright, so what's the expression here? Well, we have a 2, a 5, and a 6. 2 times 5 times 6. Okay, so what is 2 times 5 times 6? 2 times 5 is 10. 10 times 6 is 60 cubic inches. Alright, so what's the expression here? We have a 5, a 10, and a 5. So 5 times 10 times 5. Okay, so 5 times 10 is 50. 50 times 5 is 250. Okay, 250 cubic centimeters. Okay, so now though, this is the tricky part because this is where we messed up with area. Okay, you can also have the volume and then figure out a missing length, but then that requires division. Okay, so here you are looking for volume, so then you can multiply all of them. But if you have volume, like you do here, right, You don't want to multiply all three of these together because volume equals length times width times height. If you are missing one of these right here, you have to multiply the length and height, right? And then we have to divide volume by that number. Okay, so what we have to do here is let's fill in that expression so you can kind of see what's going on. Let me see if I can grab a piece of paper here. All right, so right here we have 120, right, equals 4 times the width times the height. Okay, so you have to take this 4 times this 5, right? So we have 4 times 5 is 20. So what we have is 120 equals 20 times our W. Okay, so we need to figure out what this W is. To unlock this relationship, we divide. So we actually take this side and divide it by 20, and we take this side and divide by 20. So the 20s disappear over here, and you're left with just W, right? So that's how this works. So 120 divided by 20 is 10. Okay, so our width is actually 10, and we have a label of M, so it's 10 meters. So if you have volume, you multiply the other two numbers, then you take your volume divided by that number, right? So we had 4 times 5 is 20. So we take 120 divided by 20 and we get 10. This is what's the hardest part. Okay, this is the part we really need to know though, because this takes us to the next level. Okay, so now for this one right here, right? Okay, we still have the volume of 120 equals, we don't know L, but we do know width and we know height. Okay, so let's take a look at this, and we say 4 times 3 is 12, right? Make sure that looks like an L. So we have 120 equals L times 12. Okay, now we have to take this side and divide by 12, get rid of it, divide by 12. See, we get rid of those. So now we're left with just L over here. Okay, and so then we take 120 divided by 12, which is 10. So our length is 10, and we have inches, so it's going to be 10 inches. So we took this, the ones we have, 4 times 3 is 12, right? And we took your volume divided by 12 to get your length. It's kind of like working backwards, okay? The last one here is nice and easy because it actually gives you all 3 of them. So we just have to multiply them all together, okay? So we just take 7 times 6 times 7, right? You take 7 times 6 times 7. 7 times 6 is 42. 42 times 7 is 294 cubic centimeters. Okay? Alright, so here we go. Let's do one word problem here. It says the box shaped like a rectangle has a prism that's 2 meters long, 2 meters wide, and a height of 3 meters. What is the volume? We know volume equals length times width times height. We have all 3 of those, so all we have to do is take 2 times 2 times 3. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 cubic meters. Okay, so that's the answer to 14. All right, 15 says, a dog crate is 42 inches long, 24 inches wide, and has a height of 30. So we know volume is equal to length times width times height. So we actually have to take 42 times 24 times 30 to get our answer, okay? So 42 times 24, 42 times 24 is 1008 times 30 equals 3024. Okay, see? 3024. Use your calculator for the big numbers. Cubic inches. Okay, we had a volume. Now, I wonder what the last one will be. The cargo holds a truck of a height of, so our height is 3 yards, right? 5 yards wide, so wide is 5 yards. And the volume, so we have our volume, is 240. It says what is the length. Okay, so this is the deal where you have your volume, so you have to work backwards. Okay, so this could be 240 equals 3 times 5 times, we don't know the length. Okay, so this is 240 equals 15 times length. So you have to divide this by 15, divide that by 15. That will give you your length. So take 240, okay, divided by 15. 240 divided by 15 is 16, and it's 16 yards. So our answer is 16 yards, okay? So today's lesson is a little different because of like the last problem, like 16, and then problems like 11 and 12. If you have the volume, you multiply the other two numbers, and then you take your volume divided by that number, okay? If you have all three, you just multiply them up to get your volume. That's the big difference in today's lesson, okay? So make sure when you're doing your homework, if it says what's the missing length, width, or height, and you have the volume, be ready and be prepared to divide. When you have all length, width, and height, then you just multiply, okay? There you go. That's lesson 811. See you tomorrow for 812.